everyone, April is over, so now it's time to talk about all of the books that I read in April. April was a pretty decent reading month for me. I feel like I read a couple of really good books and the rest are kind of just, I don't know, in the middle. I read 7. I think I read 7. We'll find out together. Books, and as always, when I talk about the books that I read, each month I talk about my least favorite book working up to my favorite book. So the first 2 books I want to talk about, I gave both of them 3 stars. They were just kind of my middle of the road, weren't really spectacular books for me. The first one is The Woman in the Window by A.G. Finn. This is an adult thriller novel that has been getting a lot of hype, okay? I'm excited to read it, and I did not enjoy it. I honestly might give this like a 2.75. This is basically about a woman in the window. Who would have guessed it? No, it's about a woman that's a recluse, and she is agoraphobic, and she's afraid to go outside, eyes on her neighbors, and then one night she sees something that she shouldn't have. I didn't enjoy this book because there were 2 or 3 plot twists. I guessed them right away. The writing was very confusing because the character would watch a lot of old like horror mystery movies, and it would be a lot in the book, and sometimes she would say along with the movie, and it got very, very confusing. I also felt that this book was very, very long. It's almost like 500 pages, I want to say. Like, it was way too long and lengthy, and not a lot happened in the book. So yeah, I'm still a thriller novice, so I don't know if you would take my recommendation. I don't know if you would listen to my words a ton if you read a ton of thrillers and know what you're talking about. I clearly do not when it comes to thrillers. I've only read maybe 5 to 10 in my lifetime, so not a lot. So still, I just did not enjoy this one. I was expecting a lot more from it. The other 3-star I have that I want to talk about is Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. This is a YA contemporary book about a creamery, and it's about these girls that work at this ice cream stand, and that's all you need to know. I found it enjoyable. It's a quick summer read. It's just that, I'd say. If you're just looking for something to take on the beach with you, or the lake, or the pool, whatever, and just want to have a fun time, not get a ton out of it, this is a great book for that, but it didn't pack much of a punch. I really felt the main character was kind of okay, the romance was kind of blah, and there was a friendship in this book that I thought was very toxic that I didn't appreciate. So overall, I liked this book, didn't really love it. Next up, coming in at 4 stars, actually I think like 3 or 4 of these are 4 stars. Consistent I Am. That is Queen of Hearts by Kimberly Marn. This is an adult chick lit literary fiction book. It's about these 2 characters named Zadie and Emma, who met at like med school, and they're years later they are best friends. They both are married with kids, and they both are surgeons or doctors, and basically this guy comes back from their past to shake things up, and this book is told in present time and also alternates to when they met in med school and this guy and stuff like that. I'd say if you're a big fan of Grey's Anatomy, of ER, or any medical drama, this is a great book to read because it talks a lot about surgeries and stuff like that. It doesn't delve too much into it, but I feel like I was watching a very long episode of Grey's Anatomy. So if you're into Grey's Anatomy, I would recommend this book. I really enjoyed it. It's a fun chick lit read. Next up, also at, you guessed it, 4 stars, is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This is a YA contemporary book. Author also wrote Approximately last year, which I really enjoyed. I didn't enjoy this one quite as much, sadly. It's about Zori and Lennon, who have been best friends for a very long time, and they were even kind of boyfriend and girlfriend. Then something happened that split them up, and they don't talk to each other anymore, and they get stranded on a camping trip all alone, so that sucks. And they obviously have to reconnect. I did really enjoy this one. Again, a great book to read if you're going to the beach or just looking for a great summer read. I didn't enjoy it as much, like I said, as Alex. I felt like Alex had a little bit more of the romance I was looking for, and I loved the atmosphere of that one as well. This one, if you're into camping and wilderness and love astronomy and stuff like that, you will really like this book because this is all about wilderness, which I am not wilderness like savvy at all. The next couple books I gave a 4.5 out of 5 to. Getting really technical, that's fun stuff. And the first one is Cersei by Madeline Miller. That's right, I read a Madeline Miller book. Everyone's been talking about this book, and I honestly was not planning to read this book at all this month. Like, it was not even on my radar, and then I kept hearing about it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll check it out, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. This is about, you guessed it, Cersei, who is the daughter of Helios, which this is a retelling or just a reimagining of Cersei because I'm not very knowledgeable on Greek mythology. I love it, but I don't know barely anything. Disney's animated Hercules is about as far as my Greek mythology knowledge goes, which is barely anything. So this is a whole character study of Cersei. We follow her from when she is born to really well into her life. Cersei is a very dynamic character to read about. I really enjoyed her. She was the breath of fresh air in this novel, and she was the star of this book, obviously. But it is a very, very slow book to read, I'm not going to lie to you, because it is a character study. So not a lot of action happens, not a lot of plot development. Well, a lot of plot development happens, but within Cersei, the character. So if you're looking for like a really whirlwind, adventurous novel of a book, I don't think this is the one for you. I want to dissect the character of Cersei, learn more about her and her adventures that she has, and the things that she does in her life. I would recommend this book. And if you're a fan of Greek mythology, I mean, I felt like I learned a lot about this book. I learned a lot about the Titans and the Greek gods, and, you know, different things that happen, you know, when Odysseus and Hermes and so many other things that I didn't really know a lot about. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4.5. I would have given it a 5, honestly, if it wasn't such a slow book. It took me like a week to read, which is a pretty long time for me. I did really enjoy this one and would recommend it. And I don't know, should I read her other book, Song of Achilles? I would love to hear your thoughts. And the other book I gave a 4.5 out of 5 to is You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is a YA contemporary book about these two twin sisters, and their mother is diagnosed with Huntington's disease, and basically these two sisters on their 18th birthday go get a blood test and see if they have Huntington's and one of them does and one of them doesn't. So it really, we follow both perspectives of these sisters, and they're not really close, they're really enemies almost, and we really learn how one of their lives is going to change for the worse. And it's a very sad but gripping novel. I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. Nobody's talking about it on BookTube. I wish they would, because it was so good. I thought this, for a debut novel, I thought this was beautifully written. I really fell in love with the characters. They're both sloppy and messy, and none of them are perfect, but I feel like that's what life is. Really enjoy this one. This also talks a lot about Jewish culture because their family is Jewish, so I really enjoyed this one. Would highly, highly recommend, but it is kind of sad. And it talks about Huntington's disease, which I didn't know much about. And the last book I want to talk about is my favorite, and who's going to be surprised about this at all? Probably no one, and that is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This is the second Kristen Hanna book I've read, and the second 5 out of 5 I've given to this author. Is this going to be an automatic 5 out of 5 for this author forever? I don't know. Stay tuned to find out. This takes place in 1974 in Alaska. We follow this family called the Albrights, and Art is the father, and he comes home from Vietnam War. Very, very different man. He is broken. He was a prisoner of war. He blacks out a lot, he has nightmares a lot, he abuses his wife a lot, he's just not the best. And Art discovers that somebody has gifted him a plot of land, or like a house in Alaska, and so they just drop everything and move to Alaska, into like a really, really deep, remote part of Alaska. It's like no electricity, you have to like kill animals for your food, you have to preserve things, you have to like have chickens and like livestock and things like that to supply for yourselves, and where winter is very brutal. Like winter's like 8 months out of the year in this part of Alaska. A very, very different climate there, and basically this book is surviving on the final frontier and really discovering that what's most scary is not what's outside, but what's inside their home because of Ernst, their dad. And this book follows our main character, Lenny, who is the 13-year-old. She's the daughter, so it's really, you know, a good perspective because you get to see, you know, it's like almost like a young adult take on an adult book. It is a very sad and gripping book. I feel like most of her books are. It's very hard to read about because of our main character, Ernst, and how he is very physically abusive to his wife. And overall, this was an amazing book. I felt like Alaska was just a beautiful setting and a very scary setting, and I really enjoyed it. I'd say if you were hesitant to read Kristen Hanna's books, please don't be. They're just downright amazing. Love this one, 5 out of 5. So there you have it. Those were all the books that I read in April. Right, it was a pretty good reading month for me. Not the best, not the worst. Hopefully May will continue on. I will say I did have kind of a little bit of a slump at the end of April. Like after I finished Cersei, I didn't read a book for like the last week of April. I was like, I don't feel like reading, so I just took a break. So sometimes it's refreshing to take a break from reading every now and then. You don't have to read every single day. You can take a break every now and then. I think that's awesome. So I can't wait for May to begin and for all the new releases and for me to kick right back into my reading habit. And my reading, I don't say it's a slump I was in, I was just taking a little hiatus. So if you've read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts and opinions on them. I would love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.